Here's another way you could be asked to use product and quotient rules in a visual representation instead of in an equation or a table. So this one I got to move the screen around a little bit so you can see it all. So what's happening here is you're given a function that in this case is represented by a product. So h is represented by f times g. And the directions want you to find the derivative of that function at -6. So this is definitely a product rule. So usually I start them off by just kind of writing my product rule out so I'm ready to go. And I am putting -6 in. So if you want to put -6 as you go, you can do that. So first, with -6 times the derivative of the second, so g prime of -6 plus the second times the derivative of the first. So there's our rule, putting -6 in. Now, instead of going to a table like what we've seen in other examples, we're going to actually look at pictures. So my first picture, my first graph is F, my second graph is G, and then I have to scroll down a little bit, so I'm going to have to change my screen to see that. So I'm going to start with the F. I'm going to fill in everything I know about F. So my F picture, f of -6, I'm going to go over to -6, I'm going to go up, and what I see is f of -6 is 4. And then over here, f prime of -6 is, going over to -6, it's going to be the slope, because that's what derivative represents. It represents slope. So it has to be a piece that is linear that you can calculate the slope either by picking 2 points and using a slope formula or just by counting. This one I can actually tell it goes up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So I have a slope of 1. Now your G graph, you're going to do the same thing. For G prime, you're going to look for the derivative, and for G, the original, you're going to look at just the Y value. So I do have to get this off my screen to see it. So sorry, I have to move a little bit. So here's my G graph. So I'm again going to have to go to -6. So here's what I know. At -6, my G value is -1, and my slope is also +1 because it's going up 1 over 1. So I'm going to have, let's see if I remember what I had written before. So my f of -6 was 4 times g prime of -6 is slope of 1, plus my g of -6 is -1 because that's where the y value is in the g graph, and my f prime was 1. So I get 4 plus a -1, which equals 3. All you are typing in is the numeric answer. Only thing it's tough for me to explain on here is the fact that I can't show you both pictures at once. I wish my screen would change. And they do give a really good example if you need to see another one. It kind of takes you through everything I did, and it even shows you kind of where you're at in the picture, which helps. Tells you the slope, tells you the y value. So if it's a quotient rule, let me find a quotient rule for you. Here we go. So here's a quotient rule. Let's see how much I can get on my screen. Almost all of it. I'll just kind of write down the key information here. So my quotient rule is, so I have a numerator is f, denominator is g. So my quotient rule is bottom times derivative of the top minus top times derivative of the bottom all over the bottom squared. So let me look at the picture right now just to kind of get the key information since I can't see everything all on one screen. So I am looking specifically at 7. So when I go to 7, my f function at 7 is 1, and my slope is negative. Looks like it goes down 1, 2, 3 over 2, so -3 over 2. And then for my g function at 7, my g function at 7 is -4. I'm going to write this down on a piece of paper so I can put it all on the screen for you. So for my g function at 7 is -4, and my derivative at g at 7 is the slope, and the slope looks like it's going down 1, 2, 3 over 2, so -3 over 2. Go back up to f. So I'm going to start writing this on my screen. So my quotient rule is bottom times the derivative of the top minus the top times the derivative of the bottom all over the bottom squared, so g of 7 squared. So g of 7, I wrote down g of 7 was -4. F prime of 7, that is the slope, and we did say it was going down 3 over 2, so -3 over 2, minus f of 7 is 1, G prime of 7 was also negative 3 over 2. They actually had the same slope at that spot. And then G of 7 was negative 4, and that needs to be squared, so that would be 16. So I'm going to end up with two negatives. Negative 4 times negative 3 halves gives me positive 6, minus a minus, so it's going to be plus 3 halves over 16. That's kind of a mess. So I'm going to write that as 12 halves plus 3 halves is 15 halves, divided by 16, which would be the same as multiplying by 1/16. So I'm going to get 15 over 32. If you would like to grab a calculator to help you with your arithmetic, you definitely can. That's what I say.